Welcome back. Episode 13, Second Look Sports Show. As always, we have Brandon Brown, we have Justin Arnberg, and we have Alex Mandarino as your hosts and analysts for today. We're recording today. It is March 13th, episode 13. It's not Friday the 13th. It's one day off on this Thursday. You're listening to this on the Friday. That would be wild, but I think that just makes for a good episode altogether. The fact that we the stars aligned a little bit. And I know we focused a lot on hockey the past few weeks, boys, mainly because like the trade deadline has been obviously a big topic of conversation. But fast forward that Friday of last week to technically Wednesday of this week. But if you're looking at it from more of a like broader picture, we're thinking Monday. That's when the legal tampering window opens for the NFL. We're going to be talking more football this podcast. We went from trade center for the NHL to free agency class of the NFL. And sports is back, though, boys. Like, are we happy that we're kind of back in the grind of sports after like the Super Bowl and things are kind of coming back, Brandon? Like, how have you felt the past few weeks in terms of like the sports calendar and keeping up with everything?
No, 100%. I think the sports calendar for a little bit was dominated after the Super Bowl by, at least for me, kind of the Four Nations tournament and everything that happened around the NHL at that point. Obviously, the trade deadline just recently. So now while we've got MLB starting up in a couple weeks, we've got obviously NFL free agency has been fantastic as well. It's nice to see that some of the different sports still waiting for the NBA to pick up a little bit, but we'll see what happens as we get closer to the playoffs for sure. But you're right. I think we're starting to get a little bit more out of the dog days and into that exciting part of the year for sure.
Yeah, Justin, you feel the same way?
Yeah, we're in the best time of the year up until I guess February. Let's say February 9th, because that's what the Super Bowl year or date was this year. For next year, because it's like those 3 weeks, and obviously with the exception we got the Four Nations, but that usually never happens. Those 3 weeks are usually like the worst 3 weeks of the calendar year in terms of sports. This and like not even just like major four sports leagues. Now we have March Madness,
Yeah.
Conference Championship week coming up. We have NFL free agency. We have Champions League across the pond. Like it's all picking up right now, and it just keeps on going from now until February next year. Like it's just yeah, the sports basically went from being like, season by season for most sports to now it's like 365 24/7. You can't keep up with everything that happens in the world. It's impossible.
Yeah, you feel bad for like all the girlfriends and wives or even husbands of the people that watch sports, right? Like just there's no break. Like you're like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
Sundays are free. That might be the case, but then you have like the Masters coming up in a few weeks, and then like the
oh
final
yeah.
round is that's coming in. It's just gonna be all
Well,
the time.
yeah, and then like, you have NASCAR. So
You have NASCAR.
you have
Well,
to
and we know with Christian Chiniti, over the
Yep.
Second Look Hockey podcast, he's a big F1 guy. So I think
yeah.
Sundays will be dominated by F1 as well. So everyone's got
Yeah.
something for themselves, right? That's what's
Yeah.
great.
You really have to pitch. Like you have to like you can't just come to your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend the day of or the morning of and say, "Hey, uh I, there's this game happening tonight that I want to watch." Like you got to like plan this days in advance. Cuz like there are multiple games every single day, and after a certain point, like I don't blame anyone. Like how can you
Yeah.
believe someone that every game matters every day of this calendar year?
Yeah. You
But
can't.
it does matter.
Yeah.
Does matter
It
to
does
us.
matter.
Um, but I alluded to it a little. The NFL free agency is obviously it's big. It's the free agency is like one of the biggest 3 periods of any sports calendar. You have like the playoffs / championship, free agency, trade deadline. But the NFL free agency was so weird because Monday, March 10th at noon, as I mentioned, is like you can start negotiating contracts with players and teams, but you can't officially make contracts official until Wednesday at 4 p.m., which was the 12th of March. That being said, all the insiders are reporting all these details. And I think from my understanding, like it can be leaked by like the player side and by like reports, but I don't know if teams can officially tweet
No.
out like the New York Jets
Yeah.
can't tweet, no, Justin Fields got signed. But that's not really the case as much in other sports. I feel like, at least in the NHL, is that the case? everywhere? Is that kind of more the NFL is like, well, it doesn't really matter. This is just the way we're going to do things.
Alex, I think I believe I could be wrong. I think the NHL used to have a similar system in place to the NFL, and I think because of the all of the breaking news and kind of the anticlimactic point of the actual signing day, I believe they did try to change the way it was done. I think there was some sort of moratorium where you could get guys signed, but it wouldn't be formally announced, which we see today, obviously, in the NFL.
Yeah,
Makes
and
sense.
like for the NFL, it's just basically a legal tampering window, and for them, it's just like no offense to every other major league in North America, but they're the most dominant league, and they're gonna dominate the headlines. So the sooner they can start rolling out like news, they're gonna stay in the headlines all week long. It doesn't matter about when you sign these players, like legitimately. When the news breaks, we'll be talking about it for days. That's what's
Yeah.
gonna happen, and that's what's happening right now in the NFL. So, I mean, the NFL personally has it right though, in my opinion. Just because we know that there's a tampering that happens, like to a minor level in every sport.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now the NFL has just come out and said like, okay, this is your legal tampering window. Do whatever you want to do. These guys are still under contract by the other teams, but we're gonna make this 2 days available for you to go tamper and sign this guy. Like,
Right.
that's fine by me. Like that makes it okay. Like I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
You, you
I,
know, you know, Sorry, Alex. I was gonna say I just had a thought. You know what I do like though is that the NFL offers free agency ahead of the draft, which gives teams the opportunity to really kind of
That
readjust
is a
or
good
kind of
yeah.
yeah.
chase
Yeah.
their targets before you have to go and make draft decisions on the future. Kind of gives you a better look at what your team might actually be heading into next season, as opposed to just having to draft based on what's just happened. And then if you get to free agency, maybe there's a guy that you didn't think was available or somebody that you didn't expect to fit what you were actually looking for, and it can kind of create maybe some confusion there, or just gives team a better, like I said, a better look. So I do like
Yeah.
that one aspect of it as well.
Mhm.
I agree because and I don't want to just talk about the Patriots like the whole time, but like a Patriots example of this is they haven't spent all their money that they had, but one area that they obviously need, or two areas that they need to add, is still a tackle, and they still need a standout wide receiver. Obviously, they tried to go get that in Chris Godwin. He wanted to take a pay cut, $20 million less to stay in Tampa Bay. But what that means to me now is it makes their draft even harder because now you have to decide between Will Campbell and Travis Hunter, both positions who you need because you didn't get either of them. So you either expect New England to pursue Cooper Cup, which I expect them to,
Mhm.
or like make a trade for a star wideout because if you're going to target Will Campbell in the draft, obviously you don't need Travis Hunter. Not to say that Travis Hunter wouldn't be a great addition, but like you said, Brandon, when you go in free agency and you get the guys that you need, then you realize, okay, we have this hole here that we didn't address in free agency. Okay, let's go draft that certain player. And I really like that idea. I think that a
Yeah.
lot of leagues could adapt to that as well.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, and it keeps a lot of the entertainment factor going. The NFL, you're almost always focused on something. Like the NHL, for example, you have the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, that's great, but there's this period even right now. There's a lull, then you get the playoffs, and then you have free agency. And I know the calendar makes it a little bit difficult because it extends a little bit longer than the NFL season does. They do play less games, so I guess you have the opportunity to say we have 3 or 4 months that are a little more stagnant. And so thus we can open up free agency a little earlier and keep the entertainment value of the league up. But I do love that idea. With all the reasons you just said, there's nothing else to add. I do find it really interesting, though, that can even extend to coaching in the NFL. You saw it play out a lot over the fact that Ben Johnson was being entertained by the Chicago Bears when the Detroit Lions were still in the playoffs, and they lost in their game in the playoffs. And as a result, the the logical people and the logical fans are probably thinking, well, obviously Ben Johnson had a few weeks, especially with the bye, to do his interviews with the Bears and other teams and then focus on their game. But that being said, it does, if that opportunity is changed and you maybe push the coaching conversation till after the Super Bowl so that teams can't deal with this issue, they can have it at the exact same time as the free agency period, that can cause more of a frenzy. It's a different beast because players and coaching are different, but it removes the issue that some people have in, like, you're talking to coaches while they're in the playoffs. Kellen
Yeah.
Moore is an example, although he did win the Super Bowl and got the job a couple days later. So there's pros and cons either
Fair.
way, I guess you could
I
see it.
I really I really think that it depends because like also at a certain point you're just gonna over prep yourself. Like these guys like they need to get their
Definitely.
head out of the books or out of the film and not overthink it because like Ben Johnson even alluded to it on part of my take, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He said like you can say that I took the interview and like it hurt me, but like realistically, I knew the game plan that I wanted to run against Washington. Like I knew what I wanted to do. It just didn't work to fruition. Like that's the problem at the end of the day. It just happens like that sometimes. And you can blame it on me spending an hour on an interview, which okay, but I was in the, study room or film room for 80 hours that week. Like, where do those hours go? Like for me, like that part isn't an issue, but I do like the idea of like creating a coaching frenzy, like right
Mm-hmm.
after the Super Bowl. Like, okay, here's an allotted time period where, okay, obviously we have coaching changes happening. You can go speak to coaches now. Um, yeah, but the only thing I wanted to say is, like, the NFL has it. I know that the NFL, everyone's or all the coaching staff is still working throughout the whole calendar year, let's say 365 days. But realistically, they have it the best in terms of, okay, your Super Bowl gets or your season starts in August, and then your season ends in February if you win the Super Bowl, if you make it to the Super Bowl. Then your draft or your combine is until the start of March. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
month off there. Then your draft isn't till the or free agency, I guess, middle of March. Then your draft is until the end of April. Then you don't even have OTAs until June. It's just the other three leagues, like, doesn't it feel like they get absolutely crammed into everything? Like the NHL, you literally have the game seven, and then 2 days later, you're doing the draft. Like
Yeah.
that to me is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is like Alex said. I think the difference in schedule. Like I think with the NHL and the NBA, I guess more specifically, I guess they value having a longer off season without having because they hypothetically could extend free agency a little bit later and the draft and maybe just draw it all out. But I
Yeah.
think having that level of understanding that the players kind of want to have a level of assurance of what they're doing and then they need the time off. Whereas like in the NFL, you're still, if you're signing now or if you're being drafted now, you still got a long road ahead until training camp start, where you can kind of get acclimated with where you're going to be living or whatever. If you're even making a change, there are
Yeah.
lots of things that go into that, but I think you're right. It would definitely benefit. Um, it feels like some of the organizations, we've seen some pretty, rough and tumble organizations over the past years make mistakes, after playoff exits or after poor regular season performances, and because they have to make those decisions sometimes on a dime, it's not always the right one. So I think you're right. If teams, maybe they just have to do that work and be able to multitask a little bit better, but at the same time I think having more of a chance to kind of even in the media, like you mentioned, get a conversation going only benefits the sports in general, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. I
And
agree.
there's a lot of ways to go when we bring things back here to the actual the actual free agency period 2025 of the NFL. I would like to think that outside of some of the re-signings of some of the QBs or some like holdouts or some guys are requesting trades, the actual free agency period of free agents signing this year, there was some big moves, but I don't think there was any like maybe one massive deal that kind of captured everyone's heads and hearts
Yeah,
and
you're
and
right.
X, right? Like
Well,
so.
this
With that being said, like, where do you guys want to go? Or Justin, yeah, what's your
I was
thought?
just gonna say this class was honestly down compared to other
Yeah.
classes. Like it wasn't as big as what other ones are, and obviously in the NFL. It's very different considering like you see like veteran star players get released every single year. You see it. Joey Bosa was the latest, in my
Hmm.
opinion. You have I forget Darius Slay. I'm just checking my notes here. Oh, CJ Mosley was another one on the Jets who I was kind of shocked. Like he was kind of like the leader of that defense. Obviously, the defense is something that they held their head on last year or had on. So it's just interesting to me, like these guys. And then if you want to stay with that team, you're forced into restructuring your deal, and if not, they're just going to cut you. Um, so for me, it's just like the NFL didn't have a lot of star power in this free agency class.
Hmm.
And usually that's the way if you're a good team, you lock up your good guys before they hit free agency. The one team that is kind of deciding we're not going to pay anyone is the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's all going down the crapper right now. Like, I don't know where that's all going to go. We obviously have Trey Henderson. They want teams reportedly are willing to pay him a lot of money, but the asking price for him is apparently ridiculous.
Hmm.
So we'll see where that goes. But Jamar Chase, obviously, if you would have just paid him like 2 years ago or a year ago, you could have saved yourself an extra $50 million. And if T. Higgins would have signed an extra 2 years ago, you could have saved yourself an extra $70 million probably. The cap's going up, so they're going to make more money. Just pay them when they need to get paid. It's that simple. You can do it. The cap's going up so much in the NFL. Anyway, um, Bears had a great free agency.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys have like certain players that you think of that you thought like made more sense and like you were shocked by. Justin Fields to me was, you know what, gives the Jets a new dynamic quarterback that they haven't had in a while. Someone that can run, and Rodgers could not run last year. If he could, they probably would have got a lot more first downs because like during the games last year, like there's times where if he would have took the open field for an extra 3 to 4 yards, they're probably getting an extra like I don't know 15, 20 first downs in the season, which is kind of massive to extend drives. But yeah, like what was your guys' big one?
Honestly, I mean, I think the most interesting team that came up more recently, like I would agree that first off, I would agree that the Bears have had a really great offseason so far. I think they picked up um, a couple of really important guards. I think a
Yeah,
center as
yeah,
well. I love
yeah,
the Joe Tooney trade for them. Like he's still got, I think, some good
yeah. A
football in
couple,
him.
yeah,
But we saw like a ton of guards move, and we saw a ton of them get paid, which I think was huge because we're starting to see that maybe a swing towards, recognizing how important those guys really are on the field, and that's a huge boost. And just to see everybody kind of continue to make more money and get a little bit closer and not have such a discrepancy of payment in the NFL is great. But I was going there earlier, but the Seattle Seahawks to
Yep.
me were the kind of one of the more interesting teams just because of their. It was for me, like I don't follow them too closely. I thought Geno Smith had played really well there. I thought they might get something done, but to see him move um, I guess over to the Vegas, I was kind of shocked by that. And then for them to immediately go and get Sam Darnold, who it didn't feel like they really had to do that because they've kind of sold off a lot of other pieces. Obviously, we saw DK Metcalf traded to the Steelers as well. So like for me, I'm not sure what their kind of short term or long term plans, but I was definitely kind of on my toes watching what they were going to do. Obviously, so far this offseason, yeah.
I
I like
think
that. I like that a
yeah,
lot. The Seahawks.
the
Yeah.
Seahawks like from what we saw, at least what I saw, was Gino wants a lot of money, a lot of money. And personally, I wouldn't be paying him that. So I agree with the move to move him off. Um, the DK Metcalf one, just that one to me doesn't make any sense. If you keep DK, uh, you have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, in JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then DK Metcalf, and that is an elite 1-2, especially with JSN breaking out last year, midway through the season. Like, and then the third one, it's just like you said, it's puzzling to bring in Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold has succeeded around great talent and had a terrific year last year. But he also had Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, and then the best receiver, if not the second best receiver in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson, who
And
can
Jordan
literally,
Addison too,
and
right?
Jordan
Like,
Addison, who can literally catch anything. So why the Seattle Seahawks would do that makes no sense to me. It just, I mean, if you think that, do you guys think Sam Darnold's gonna be as good as what he was last year? I
I
don't.
don't think he's going to be as good. And I think it's the weapons that you suggested, but it's the system too, right? Like Kevin O'Connell is one coach of the year for a reason last year. Sam Darnold put up some great numbers, but we did see in his final couple of weeks when the pressure was sort of put
Yeah. Final
towards his,
three.
it's final three, mainly those two at the end, but like, yeah, you could say the latter half of the season he started to tail off and become a little bit more like the pumpkin as opposed to the prince or whatever the saying is. But he was the guy that obviously held things down. But I just don't know with the weapons. Now, here's the thing is I was reading into the fact that we can get into some of the guys that haven't signed and the released guys and some of the QBs, wide receivers, players that haven't signed yet in the latter half of the pod. But Cooper Kupp is from Washington State, so where Seattle is obviously located. I don't know if that's something that the Seahawks are interested in pursuing, but online it's going crazy. And imagine having him with JSN. And then you have some weapons. Mike McDonald, I think, is, if I'm not mistaken, he's more of a defensive coach, but I
Yeah,
think
he is.
right, you can still see, and so in players and coaches that have quarterbacks and maybe not neglect the offensive side, but focus more on defense, then it might be a little bit more either on the OC or on Sam Darnold to kind of make the correct plays. But now, if you place a wide receiver like Cooper Kupp there, that is a veteran, Triple Crown winner, 3 years ago, put up unbelievable numbers. Yes, he is injured and he's a little bit older, but he's coming home. Probably has this point of his career, he might be a little bit more like sound and happy to be in his home state. That would be a great move for them. And then, like you said, Justin, you have JSN who's breaking out and would be, I think, his third year in the league this year, and has the opportunity to take off. So I think if they can get Cooper Kupp in there, I have more trust in Sam Darnold, who wouldn't. I don't think he'll be as good as he was in purple in Minnesota, because you have a little bit more safety measures there as opposed to where you are now in Seattle.
Yeah.
Tough,
I
tough to
I
play. Oh, sorry,
sorry,
Justin.
go
I was just
ahead.
gonna say, it's tough to play in that division too. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
be
True.
a lot of your divisional games
Except
gonna be outdoors for when you're in San Francisco. Obviously, Seattle themselves, like it's gonna be a little bit more of a harsh environment. And obviously, a lot of those teams in the NFC West have some great defenses as well. So he'll be put to the test, and who knows? Like I don't know. I I haven't seen enough of it, Sam, to really know what consistency he's gonna bring in. But I don't think it's gonna be too good for him.
I
yeah.
want to shout out the one team that I was thinking of though, Justin, because we mentioned a couple teams that we liked. I liked the Rams moves. You released Cooper Kupp. Obviously, that was something that they had decided on a couple of weeks ago, and it was made official only, I think, technically yesterday or Wednesday, if you're listening to this
Right.
on Friday. But they did bring in Devontae Adams. I'm not saying that's the be all end all, but he has proven to be successful. I'm surprised he made his decision without waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make his. I don't know if that's telling in the fact that, like, there's differences in terms of what they want, whether it be winning or whether it be money, whatever the case is, or whether Aaron Rodgers just doesn't know. And Devontae Adams obviously had to scoop up the best deal for himself. But I do think it's a nice addition. He can still stretch the field a little bit. I know he's got some more wear in his tires this day and age, but it's a similar comp to Cooper Kupp in terms of an age, even though Devontae Adams is just a couple of years older, I believe. But then they brought in defensive tackle Puna Ford, who had a great year last year with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Chargers.
Yeah.
Decent ad. I don't know if the Chargers were just willing to part ways with him. They weren't really willing to pay him the money that he got, 3 years, $29.6 million. But I think the Chargers brought him in on a 1-year deal last year. I'm sort of disappointed they couldn't bring him in. He had a decent season last year, but I think that's a great add for an already incredible defensive team in the Rams and a young team. So a guy like him bringing in a little bit of leadership and hopefully shoring up that D even more, that's going to be a really dangerous team. And that just goes to your point with with Seattle there. It's going to be a hard place for Sam Darnold to play in that division for sure.
Listen, I just want to touch quickly before we take a break because
Yeah.
obviously we have more free agency to talk about. But um, I know people are kind of like shitting on Justin Fields to the Jets. Um, and I touched on it a little bit earlier. Like he can obviously run, and he's got that side of his game that Aaron Rodgers didn't have. But he also reunites now with Garrett Wilson at
Mhm.
Ohio State from those days. And if anyone knows, that's when Garrett Wilson really became like one of the best players in the draft. So for him, he has to be excited that he's getting his old college quarterback back. And it's I think that is like something that we haven't like or like the I guess media hasn't even noticed really like that connection I think is going to be very very significant this
Mhm.
upcoming season. I really do. I think that's a great ad.
No, I think you're right, Justin. Like it is a good point because outside of the Garrett Wilson, I think like he posted the Instagram story of that he of the signing. I think people took that as a like you said, obviously he's gonna love having his old college teammate back on his squad. But I think the one thing that nobody's really talked about is the opportunity for like a real dual threat backfield with him and with Brees Hall.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Brees Hall really broke out for me last year. I thought he played fantastic in kind of what ended up being kind of a terrible year for the Jets. And he was one of their bright spots, obviously Garrett Wilson as well. So you put the three of them together in terms of, a dual threat quarterback, a running back who can make plays in the backfield as well as in the open field. And then you got Garrett Wilson who can obviously make plays down the field. So you put those together, if they can play strong defense, which they've been, has been the backbone of their team for the last couple of years. And then if they can protect Justin and make sure that they, have time to make plays, I don't see why they can't be at least an improved team from last year. Like there's no question about that for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to make fun of that deal. It is the Jets, so I'm always hesitant to be like, is this
Yeah,
a good
like
move, right?
yeah.
Like they brought in Aaron Rodgers, there was so much excitement,
Yeah.
and he tore his Achilles in 4 plays, and that's luck. That's not like anything to do with preparation, I'm sure, anything like that. But Justin Field, as you guys alluded to, is such a different quarterback to Aaron Rodgers that it is going to open up a lot more opportunity for that run game. He can obviously move. I didn't even really consider that Ohio State connection. That's a great shout. And ultimately, it is a 2-year deal. I know in the NFL, like there isn't a lot of long-term deals for quarterbacks unless you really have your guy anyways. Like we talked about Sam Darnold, I believe is a 3-year deal with Seattle, which
Yeah, it
already I
is.
think was a big, not a big gamble, but in a sense of you showed 1 year of promise
Yeah.
under a smart coach. I think that's a little bit of a risk, but we're talking about
I
Fields here.
also I also think like Sam Darnold was underneath Kyle Shanahan too, so that extra
Yeah,
year there helped. Like he's
exactly.
been underneath some good systems now for 2 years, and I think like realizing you cannot go back to an organization that doesn't have a good system in place, and
Yeah.
that's something that I know you're about to say Justin Fields. Like that's something that yes could hurt Justin Fields.
It could. It could. I think more than anything, the point I'm just trying to make is it is 2 years. And this year for quarterback classes isn't necessarily like the best from a draft perspective. And if this is the worst case for 2 years that Justin Fields is a bridge quarterback, and then maybe even next year you draft a guy, it depends on where the Jets land in the draft order. But there's a couple of guys next year that I think are really supposed to pop. Obviously, you have like Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller. Like there are a couple of names that are
Yeah, yeah,
coming in next
Drew.
year. So I mean, who knows if this is just a bridge, and then the quarterbacks class in 2026, I guess, are more what the Jets are looking for, and this at least gives them sort of a bridge guy to kind of bridge the gap
Yeah.
towards a more successful quarterback in the future.
This draft class for the quarterbacks is not good at all. So I'm
Yeah,
not shocked like that guys would want to sign a bridge quarterback right now because they don't want to risk taking a top pick with a guy that, they don't actually believe in being a top guy when you know that the 26th draft is loaded with guys that are actually going to be top top first round picks.
Yeah. We'll finish up on this side. On the other side of the pod, we'll touch a little bit more on NFL free agency, some of our regular segments, but also some of the players that have not signed an NFL free agency yet, maybe predictions as to where we think they might go. So stay tuned. And welcome back to episode 13. If you joined us, hopefully you did. You just continued listening to the pod. We talked earlier about the general free agency in the NFL over the past few days. And we're just going to kind of continue with some of our favorite teams in terms of how they did overall. Brandon, I know you were pretty interested in doing a recap of how the Buffalo Bills did, obviously re-signing Allen, but a couple more moves as well, or restructuring his contract, I should say. So take it away. What do you think of how the Bills did this offseason so far?
Yeah, I mean, for me, they did really well. They were one of the most active teams, I think, so far in free agency. They've also re-signed a ton of players. You mentioned Josh Allen got the huge extension, which was awesome. We saw some great comments from him, very team friendly on Thursday, I guess. But they also did a great job bringing back Khalil Shakir, Greg Rousseau as well on the defensive side is fantastic as well. Terrell Bernard. They just did a good job of keeping their core kind of intact. And they're trying to bring in some other guys, kind of on the cheap for, to hopefully fill in the edges. Like Joey Bosa is a big name. He might not be as impactful as he once was with the Chargers. Obviously, Alex, you'll be familiar with him. But it's great to see them continue to work on getting some guys. I really like the Josh Palmer deal as well. Like he's again kind of another guy that they're going to take a shot at. Apparently, we're only going after Chargers players. I'm
I
realizing
know.
now, but it works out if those guys can come in and maybe not fill as much of a role as they would have been asked to in LA, and can kind of help just continue the forward momentum for Buffalo.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. I like what the Bills did as well. And living in Toronto, you sort of you grow to love the Bills regardless of what they've done. And as a Chargers fan, losing those guys, it's tough. But to see them go to a team like Buffalo, it softens the blow for sure. Justin, I know the Patriots got a little active on their team, maybe not adding exactly what they're missing, but they did make some moves. Thoughts on kind of how they did or what they maybe need to continue doing?
I think that the Patriots honestly had one of the best off seasons so far.
Right.
And that's not trying to be biased, but yeah, when you bring in Milton Williams, like that is a massive piece to the back line, or to the defensive line, sorry. And then you also have Carlton Davis. I just want to make sure I got his name right.
Mhm.
Um, from Detroit coming over to create arguably one of the best cornerback duos in the entire league with him and Christian Gonzalez now. The defense looks great. The defense looks like it's a Mike Vrabel defense. Harold Landry as well. We can't forget him. And a couple other minor signings. Offensive tackle Moses Mosley. Um, and I forget the guy they got from the Raiders right now. I can't remember. And then also Matt Collins or Hollins. But that is the one position where the Patriots need to beef up. And that is they haven't had a star wide receiver in, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years now.
Mm.
And the last time they had one, I wouldn't even say he was a star wide receiver, and that would be Brandon Cooks, when Tom Brady was still there. So they desperately need to find one. And I just saw a report during the break that the Patriots and Cooper Cup are well underway and talking about a contract, but the Patriots don't like his asking price at the moment. It's apparently a little bit too steep, so we'll see where it goes. But the point being, the Patriots have had a great offseason. They've been willing to spend. They were in on Chris Godwin. They just obviously he wanted to stay in Tampa Bay and stay with Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield because he was offered $20 million more. It just obviously wanted to stay in Florida. I can't blame the guy, but the Patriots, you have to be liking their moves. Like it's just you just need that star weapon and maybe a better running back for Drake May. But the defensive side of the ball looks really good right now. It looks like a Mike Vrabel head coach team, to be honest. So we'll see where it goes. I just think the Patriots need to make a trade, and they might need to I think that personally, I think it would be much better to draft, I would say, a Will Campbell over Travis Hunter, and I know that's hard to say, but I think that's probably the better option, and then trade for a star receiver. I know they were in on DK, uh, in on Cup. We'll see what happens. Maybe they're in on T. Higgins, maybe Jamar Chase. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, the Patriots just need that star wide out player, I think.
Yeah. That is true. And, after getting Drake May and shoring up some of their non-skilled positions, I think that's obviously next. The Chargers sort of added to their skilled positions. They made a couple of moves, not necessarily a splash that I would have thought they would have made. Obviously, Justin Herbert hasn't necessarily had the best cast of characters outside of Keenan Allen, and obviously he left last season for Chicago. They did, I think, trade him, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't really know how that worked out for the Bears, but you know what? I think there's still more to come for the Chargers. They went for a couple of more bargain players. They did obviously sign Najee Harris. I was okay with that move. He's sort of one
It's
of
a good
those,
move.
he's not going to create his own space. He's kind of just going to go with whatever's blocked for him, and that's kind of the yards he's going to do. I don't know if he's going to get a lot of yards created just off of his own efficiency. And he seems a little bit more of a slower back, but I mean, he's just sort of declined a little. Now you have J.K. Dobbins, who obviously is still a free agent, and Gus Edwards is injured, so they went with an interesting running back duo last year, and J.K. Dobbins obviously performed really well. I just don't know how they feel about it moving forward, whether it's an injury-prone scenario or what they decided to do. I don't mind the signing. I'm not like, oh, Najee Harris is a game changer. I just think you see some of the performances like Saquon Barkley last year, and obviously that's unattainable from free agency this year, but I'm okay with it. They brought back in Mike Williams, which I think is a decent play. He played a little bit last year, and if he can stay healthy, he can really stretch out the field, and obviously has a little familiarity with Justin Herbert. And then the CB, Dante Jackson, they brought in a decent year last year, more of a bargain player. They still have some of their rookies their second year players who are back in their cornerback position that I think are mostly going to fill the starter roles, but I think it sort of shores up their secondary line there. So they made a couple of bargain plays. Najee Harris obviously being the big move. I'm okay with it as a player. I don't mind the fact that they didn't sign Josh Palmer and Joey Bosa. And I'm not saying that just because I'm like a salty fan. Josh Palmer's a good player, good Canadian kid. I think he's from Brampton, Ontario, which is my hometown as well, which is pretty exciting, but didn't stay the healthiest last year. He is an average player, but he's not going to be the star guy on the Bills. You have Khalil Shakir that broke out last year, and he's going to get some decent yards as like a second or third option, I think, for the Bills. And Joey Bosa, I do think his best days are behind him. He got a little injured last year. It's hard to stay healthy, but I still think he can be effective. I just don't think with Khalil Mack being re-signed and Joey Bosa, I do think they made the right move in re-signing Mack. I'm really excited to see him come back. And it's hard to sort of afford them both.
Don't you feel like though Najee Harris is like the perfect Jim Harbaugh guy?
In what way
Like
do you think?
You're right.
he loves to run the football. Like I
Definitely.
mean, loves to run it. He doesn't like throwing the football. So I just think like in terms of coach and running back fit, like that is a perfect fit for Najee Harris. And like you said, like he's not going to go create yards on his own, but that's not what Jim Harbaugh likes. He likes when his running backs go up the middle of the field through the offensive lineman and get those yards by the offensive line blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where he likes to run the football. Um, so yeah, I like the fit a lot more than what you're giving it credit for, I think. Like that is a really good fit in my opinion.
I'm glad. I'm glad you're hyping me up. I'll take it. I've just seen his performances in Pittsburgh he had such high potential, I think, did Harris, and he's an average, above average running
Hey,
back, I would say.
he's also dealing with Pickens there.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. We can even get into that when we talk about some of the
And
free
Russell
agents.
Wilson.
It'll be, I think, obviously Jim Harbaugh is a run first guy,
Uh,
but when you have Justin Herbert, like, dude, you got to throw the ball. So like, it is a little bit of a weird fit there, in that sense of like, where's the wide receiver, and hopefully they do bring in maybe like a Cooper Cup type. If not, there's a couple guys in the draft that I think they can target. Happy.
Stefan Diggs.
I don't want Stephon Diggs.
I don't think anyone wants Stefan Diggs. And I like if people are gonna say like to me like, oh, the Patriots like they should just go get Stefan. No, 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 no. That
Yeah,
guy is not someone that you want in your locker room, in my opinion.
yeah. Speaking of guys you might not want in your locker room, we have a couple of people. Well, we have one specific guy that's unsigned that I think deserves some headlines in Aaron Rodgers. I've never met Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he's not a locker room guy, but he's in the media for the wrong reasons a lot more than he isn't. So he's still unsigned. Adam Schefter actually did call him out in a podcast recently, basically being like, dude, sign. Like, why are you taking so long? I did feel like it was a bit unfair. It's only been a couple of days, and he has the right to sort of take his time in a certain sense. Where do you guys think Rodgers ends up? Brandon, I'll go to you. Do you have any thoughts as to where the veteran kind of lands?
Honestly, I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess Pittsburgh. Like I don't really I don't know.
Listen,
I don't know how many there's not a lot of teams that, in my opinion, are in a spot where they can say we're an Aaron Rodgers away if he's even Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. Maybe Pittsburgh is the one, but I don't really know.
I think I think you guys are underestimating a little bit. And I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers of like MVP,
Mm-hmm.
but if we're pulling up his stats from last year, the guy, let me go find them. You guys ramble about him for like 1 minute before I go on here and give you some
I'll
stats.
add that I don't think that he was not bad by any like standard really. Like last year he wasn't the worst quarterback out there. He can still help a team, but again, like why? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not clearly not a long-term spot, and unless you're a team that feels like you need that just that extra boost, or you don't have a starting quarterback, you don't really there's not really I don't feel like there's a good fit in too many places anymore, and he just doesn't feel like the kind of guy that can bring a team even further. Like there are obviously some poor teams out there, but even they have plans where they wouldn't really make sense to bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have, there's only really two destinations in my opinion, and we can get to them, but I know Justin, you really want to touch on his stats here.
Well, like they're also the two destinations, assuming you're saying the Giants as well. Those are the only
Yeah.
two that seem logical at this point. And to be honest, like the Steelers make a lot more sense if you're Aaron Rodgers to choose from. If you're being like if it's in your court, like you're not like being told like, okay, we're only gonna sign you for this much. If those two teams are willing to pay you whatever, like whatever you want in a reasonable range, like I would be going to Pittsburgh all day. So last year he had 28 touchdowns, which ranks seventh in the NFL.
Mm.
Seventh. And he played like absolute crap the first half of the season, but he was also injured the first half of the season. The second half of the season, he was actually a lot better. And like if you go back to the rest of the, I guess, season last year, the second half of the season, like you can see the difference in the game. Like it just wasn't like first half Aaron Rodgers was not himself, and second half Aaron Rodgers was not himself, but it was a better version of himself. And if you're getting that version of Aaron Rodgers, the second half version of last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers should be signing up for that all day long. And like, I would want to go to Pittsburgh because you have
Mm-hmm.
weapons there, you have a defense. Yeah, I really don't like. So you guys are that down on Aaron Rodgers? You guys don't think he's good like at all, or
For the investment, you'd probably pay him. Like I'm more on Brandon's side in the sense of
it's only one year?
if you look at those teams, right? From Aaron Rodgers' perspective, I think it makes more sense to go to Pittsburgh. I I think mainly because of it depends on his values. He's made, I'm just looking this up, an estimated $380 million over his career. So if money is the object, I do not understand why, because you've made enough for multiple generations. If you're going to look to win, neither team is in the greatest position, but like you said, Steelers have DK and they have George Pickens. Put me in that locker room with
Yeah, give
those
me
three
that.
guys, please. And let just the cameras roll. Hard Knocks, please pull that off.
Mike
I don't think it
Tomlin
could be
just
Hard
loves
Knocks, but
it.
still
Mike Tomlin loves it. No, you have
loves the
to.
drama
They can't. They don't qualify for Hard Knocks.
because
You
they
know
made the
how?
playoffs
Yeah, you have
and
to. And you have
first year
to.
head coach.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I just think it would make sense if it's a 1 year for the Giants because only for one reason. It's the fact that, again, we talked about Justin Fields. You extend that 1 year, 2 years, and then you draft a number one quarterback, and maybe he learns under Rodgers, even though Rodgers might not be the best team first guy. I don't know. Um, all that to say, it is still a weird fit in New York because you have these front office, even Brian Dable, Joe Shane, and John Mara. They're hanging on by a thread here. Like, and to
yeah.
draft Aaron Rodgers for a year of mediocrity, I don't know if that's going to be enough to be like, oh, well, you guys, well, we know the bigger plan. Like, no, you guys have been bad for years, and there needs to be a turnaround, even though the timeline might not fit. Also, just side note, unrelated completely, I was looking up the Giants staff today, and their assistant GM's name is Brandon Brown. So I don't know if you have a dual.
Let's go.
I don't know if you have a dual.
N-
That's what you've actually been doing outside the pod, Brandon.
Man, that'd be great, but yeah,
No, go
but I have
ahead.
to hide after I leave. I know,
Yeah, yeah,
I did not know that. That's fantastic. Good for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Good for him.
So that's
For
just my
him.
thoughts on A-Rod in terms of where he might end up. But I don't know.
A-Rod.
I mean, when it comes to the Giants, it is tough because I think regardless of what happens with Rodgers, it is such a big risk to say we're going to bring him in and hope for what? Even the best case, it doesn't, I don't think they're winning a Super Bowl. They're not getting to the playoffs even. Like they've got a great star in Malik Neighbors, and Rodgers
Mhm.
should want to go there to play with him if he gets the chance. But I don't know. The Pittsburgh Steelers just makes a little bit more sense in terms of being competitive, and I think that's what Rodgers wants in the end. So maybe he's going to use the Giants to try to get a little bit more money out of Pittsburgh. I don't know, but if that's the case, I don't. Maybe I think that would be maybe the time. I think to say Tomlin might miss the playoffs or not go 8-8. I guess can't go 8-8 anymore, but he's might have that first losing season if Rodgers
No.
is. I just don't like the fit.
No, you guys are going way too hard on Aaron Rodgers. Like Aaron Rodgers is still a decent quarterback. He's a lot better than Daniel Jones. Don't tell me he's not better than Daniel
Yeah,
Jones.
I mean,
So
comparable. Like at this point, I don't.
no,
Yeah.
no, not even
Well,
close.
Daniel
Are
Jones
you
can actually
kidding?
move a little in the
Are you
pocket, I will
kidding me?
say.
Are you kidding me? He can't complete a pass though. Daniel Jones cannot complete a pass. At least Aaron Rodgers can look down the
If you
field and find an open receiver.
if you're asking me who I'd rather have for
Oh no,
1
you're not gonna
year,
say it. You're not gonna say it.
for 1 year, I mean, it depends on the goals. If you're looking to win the Super Bowl, yes, I am
Isn't that the
probably going
goal for
Aaron
every
Rodgers.
team?
No, well, you would think, but there's many teams that haven't come close for many years.
For some teams, it shouldn't be the goal. It probably you're right,
Yeah.
like it is, but it should be the goal. Like in 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever it takes. Like the Commanders are a good example. They drafted
Mhm.
their guy. Now they're filling in the edges. They're going after pieces that they think they need, and they're looking 1-2 years ahead. Some teams
Mhm.
are just they think they're going to draft a quarterback or sign a free agent, and now it's like, oh, we're going for it. When it takes a little bit more time than that, I think sometimes.
Yeah.
So you're telling me you'd rather have Daniel Jones?
I would.
Uh, no.
It depends. Again, like if you're looking to win, no, then I would rather have Aaron Rodgers for 1 year. But I still do think that like it just doesn't make any sense to bring him in if he is, and again, this is all speculation. Like he might be a great guy and just has been hiding it for 20 years. But if he ends not the best locker room guy, like what is the point in bringing him in for 1 year? What
When
is
did
that
the
going to
Giants
lead?
pick?
Let me just go through. They picked third. They picked
Yeah.
third overall.
Okay, so would you rather have Aaron Rodgers or like Cam Ward or
They might not get
Or
like
Cam Ward if
yeah,
that's
Cam
that
Ward
is
goes number one. Like they don't want.
Well, yeah, so they should be doing everything in their power to do something like that. Then
I
get
To get
agree.
number one.
you know,
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
agree.
so if you like, let's just go through a couple quarterbacks here. You're telling
Yeah.
me Aaron Rodgers. Okay, Aaron Rodgers or
do it, do
Geno?
it.
Geno.
I would take Geno.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, I would
no,
take Geno.
no,
Bro, are you kidding me?
no,
Right now, today is like
no,
going into next year.
no.
I would take Geno.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins?
I
Oh,
I, I don't
no.
want either. So I would probably that's a good question. That's a good
Can
one.
you, is this for a year, Justin, or is it like, what
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
the
just
terms?
this year. Let's just go going into 2025, 2026. Who would you rather have?
I would probably take Rodgers over Kirk Cousins
I
this
think
year.
the same. I think I'm the same.
Yeah.
I think both are done,
Tua.
like pretty much done though.
I agree.
I'll take Tua.
Tua?
I'll take
Yeah,
Tua.
Tua.
Even like he's one concussion away, but
Yeah,
I'll take him.
he's made of paper.
Derek Carr.
Rodgers.
I mean,
I
you're
might
taking
take Rodgers
You're
there.
not.
I don't
That's not
know.
a debate.
Yeah,
That's not a debate. Trevor Lawrence.
give me T-Law.
Yeah.
Okay. Dak Prescott. I'm taking Rodgers.
If Dak is healthy, I would take Dak.
Yeah, me too. And if his contract wasn't his contract, right? It like, but if you're
Bro,
just
that's
going
fair.
straight up play.
That's
No, I
just
would still
play.
take
Like,
if Dak is healthy. I think he is a
We're just
better
going
quarterback
player-
than what Aaron Rodgers is going to give you right now.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
mono for a mono right now. Okay. Last one here that I have. Anthony Richardson or Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I mean, if I'm the Colts and I picked him, even though I, making
No.
some weird moves now.
No. We're saying quarterback.
Right now?
Your quarterback.
Yeah.
1 year.
I
going into this year.
I take Richardson. Yeah,
Oh, you wouldn't.
No,
No, you
I
wouldn't.
would. I would.
That's a tough one.
Rodgers. It's Rodgers, man.
In that case, I might go Rodgers.
right.
Only because Anthony Richardson's a great athlete, but he has shown nothing to prove he's a
Not enough
quarterback.
yet.
I don't
Alright.
know.
Actually, this is the last one
He's
because
got one more.
All right,
Yeah.
bring it on.
Steelers. We're just gonna say the Steelers, okay? Steelers with the current team that they have. Who would you rather have going into the season, Aaron Rodgers or Sam Darnold? I'm saying Aaron Rodgers.
If I'm the
Well,
Steelers,
Yeah. This is.
I mean, to Alex's point earlier, like they have weapons. So I would probably take Darnold. Like,
yeah, I think I would take
if you can
Darnold.
protect him and give him time and make sure, like, I don't know, again, more of like it would be out like a lot of outdoor games. Like I haven't seen anything that suggests that he can play in the snow or make it work in the elements because he needs kind of an indoor environment to at least be as accurate as he was last year. But I would still take Darnold, I think, just to, yeah, I
Yep,
don't know.
I agree
No.
with that.
No.
Seen a little bit
no.
more recently, I guess.
No. He's a 1 year guy. You guys just said, oh, he hasn't. Who didn't prove themselves? Anthony Richardson. Like, how does he then prove
No,
himself?
I think
He's only
I
improved-
think Richardson's done enough to I would take him
Yeah.
over Rodgers, but I think that it is similar. Like it's a similar argument, I guess. Like you're still betting on progression. I think with Rodgers, you're just betting against
regression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like
yeah.
I'd rather take the risk of the progression not being as high or staying the same as opposed to a guy that you're just hoping and praying that he can produce what he has years ago. If you're looking at last year and saying I hope I get that, it's saying, well, it's inconsistency. So I don't know that that's exactly what teams are going to be looking for.
Now,
Alright,
Justin,
fair.
are you saying, just to clarify, because either way it doesn't matter, but are you picking Rodgers over all of those quarterbacks that
Overall, who?
you've mentioned? All the
I forget who
quarterbacks you
said.
mentioned.
Yeah,
Are you
I
taking
would.
Rodgers first?
Gino,
Okay.
I'm taking Rodgers over Gino. I'm taking Rodgers over Anthony Richardson next year. That guy literally had a 47% completion percentage. 47. Come on, guys. Dak Prescott, we'll see if he's healthy. I don't know what kind of Dak Prescott we're gonna get. If we're gonna get Dak Prescott in when he's great, probably Dak Prescott next year, honestly. Obviously Aaron Rodgers over Daniel Jones. Obviously Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. Obviously Aaron Rodgers over Derek Carr. Obviously Aaron Rodgers over Kirk Cousins. Yeah, like all those guys, he's still better than, in my eyes. Like he's
That's
still
fair.
he's still a better quarterback than those guys.
What about Justin Fields?
He's
Ooh.
better than he's better than Justin Fields.
Okay. So you think the Jets got worse?
I don't know if the Jets got worse. I think it's a fit. I think it's just a fit.
I
Like,
agree. I
So
do
you like
agree
the
that.
fit? He's just not as good. He might not be as good.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't think like I just don't think that the Jets and Aaron Rodgers was the greatest fit right from the get-go. Everything was lined up, but it just didn't seem to work out. So we'll see. Like, obviously, Green Bay, it was a perfect fit for him or whatever. But like, yeah, I think like you could tell me that the Jets got worse, but I think that the fit is much better for Justin Fields and the Jets than what it was for Aaron Rodgers. So I would rather Rodgers play, but I'd like the move of Justin Fields going to the Jets, if that makes sense.
That's good to clarify. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's
Yeah,
hard to
man.
answer that question without the offensive line discussion and your weapons. Because, Rodgers is a little bit more like he's got the arm and he's got the smarts, but he can't really move. So it
Yeah.
sort of depends on what team you're placing him on. But good discussion because, we'll see where he signs this year. Watch him just retire. And this is now moot. But no, like if he signs anywhere particular, we'll find out and we'll see how it plays out. For either team. And then is it just safe to say Russell Wilson will just sign wherever Rodgers doesn't? Or do you think Wilson signs first?
Wilson does sign is like sloppy seconds, unfortunately, to Aaron
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers.
It
It
seems that
is
way
at this
now.
point. Yeah, it is like it's unfortunate, but and like who knows? Maybe a team doesn't even want to take a chance on him. That's where we're at with him, I think. Like he
Yeah,
might I was just gonna
I
say
could.
he might go to Carolina and back up Bryce Young. Who knows? I don't know.
I would love that.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think with the teams available, I don't think like I don't. I could be wrong. I don't think Russ is going back to Pittsburgh. But I think he's more likely to be a backup potentially, or take an option somewhere than like go to maybe the Giants. I don't know. Like if Rodgers wants to go to Pittsburgh, like it's gonna be a very interesting tango, I think, between those two guys. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
I
like
did.
a good place for him would have been to go to the Dolphins, but Zach Wilson grabbed that spot, which I think that's a really good signing for Zach Wilson. Maybe
Yeah.
not the Dolphins, but like to get a chance because you're banking on Tua basically going
You
down.
could be called on at any time.
Exactly. So like he probably looked at his options, was like, hell yeah, I'm going to the Dolphins. That's the
You're
best
playing
chance
in
I could play.
Miami. Where has he played so far? New York. Where was he last year again?
Denver,
Wilson?
Denver.
Denver.
Denver. Cold environments. And
Denver
now
got a lot
you
better,
went down to
boys. Denver
Miami.
got a lot better as
Yeah.
well.
They
They're
do
a
Ingram
good
look good.
signing.
Yeah,
signing.
they're
Yeah.
sneaky,
Yeah,
man.
That's,
Greenlaw, that's a really
yeah.
good signing.
They did make some
Um,
good moves.
yeah, like
Um,
go move on. I'll compare Cup next if you want, like to other guys that
no.
much rather.
No, because I like Cup, but Cup is the guy that I think we should go to next. Now, just quickly, Wilson, I think, is set to meet with the Giants and I think even the Browns, because obviously we don't know if
Yeah,
Deshaun Watson's going to
right.
play this year. They did get Kenny Pickett
Oh,
in the
they're going
trade,
for Kenny.
but I don't know if he's going to be your starter. Like the Browns are a whole different beast. They picked second overall for a reason. But we'll see where that goes with Wilson. Cup. We mentioned a couple areas we'd like to see him, or maybe he might go. Brandon, do you have thoughts on where Cup lands?
I mean, I like the idea of the Patriots. I think he would be a fun guy to have in that system and be like in that environment. And he kind of fits, I think, what I envision of a guy who would like be kind of on that team or that jersey. But I don't know. Outside of that, I there's not too many teams it feels like that are willing to take a risk, I guess, for the type of money that he's kind of asking for. He's been heavily, like in my opinion, he's been heavily relied upon in Los Angeles for his whole career, but he's also had some pretty bad injury luck and some bad you know, not recovery, but he's never
Mm-hmm.
really bounced back from his last injury, I think from 2023. He didn't have a great year last year. Again, had injury problems. So I don't really know where he's going to end up. I'm sure there are teams interested, but how much they're willing to pay, he might just pick the highest bidder.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Justin, should I even ask?
I mean, I don't know what in the world Brandon's talking about. he had a great season up until his injury last year. You know, so what are you talking about?
No, I mean, I think coming off injury, he's not a guy that I would trust in terms of signing. I don't know what kind of term you're looking for, but
Oh, no more than 2 years.
so I mean,
If
you're
it's
not
longer than 2 years, then yeah, bad.
like I said, there are guys teams are going to be interested. He still has the talent. He's a great receiver. Like I said, I think he would be great in New England, but I don't know necessarily that he's still the guy that he's maybe looking to get paid for. If he's willing to go somewhere and be uh, he was kind of a 1A in LA in the last couple of years, but with Puka. But I think if he can go somewhere and be like a strong 2 or a 3, like he would be a fantastic add to a team that already has some good weapons. So it just depends on what he's looking to do. If he wants to go and be a number 1 or what. But
I think I'm just like defending a future Patriot here because that's where I see him going. I think the Patriots still have the most money in terms of free agency and what they can do. So I wouldn't be shocked if they just, I know that their report earlier that I said like they don't really like the price, but hey, you need a receiver to give Drake May. Uh, you're gonna have to pay something. You're gonna have to just suck it up and pay it. If he doesn't work out, cut him after next year. Who cares? Move on. Um, but yeah, Cup should be a New England Patriot by the end of the week, I would assume.
Imagine you live in LA and then all you have to do is change locker rooms. And for that reason,
Oh
Cooper Cup
yeah,
is a Charger.
Yeah, give me
He's
a
a Charger.
no.
They have money, and imagine you're gonna play for Drake May. I'd rather play with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, as far as I'm
Buddy,
concerned.
no, 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 no. Drake May is better than Justin Herbert right now.
We
Let's
don't have
go.
time to
Let's
get
go.
into
I
that
don't know.
Let's
discussion. We
go.
don't even have
I
time to
don't
get
know
into
about
that
that
right
one.
now.
Yes, you. What do you mean you don't know?
Credibility has just been
I don't know.
thrown out the window.
Don't ask me, man.
What do you mean you
Brandon's
don't
Brandon's
know?
just signs off.
I,
Well, yeah, no. Well, I mean, there's and first of all, it's even unfair to get into that discussion because Drake May has played a season, but honestly, I will say he's got a lot of suitors, and he does got a couple suitors, and I think Cooper Cup could fit in on a lot of different teams. But I would like to see Chargers or Patriots mainly for this podcast, but we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, if he goes to the Patriots, just know that he chose, the more talented quarterback, and that's what he was looking for.
If that makes you sleep better at night, then that's good for everybody.
And if he goes to the Chargers, just know it's because he just didn't want to move.
Hey, I wouldn't want to move either. I wouldn't want to move either. But we do got to get to a couple quick segments here. We'll go to taking a second look. Who are we taking a second look at this week? Brandon, we'll go to you, and I know Justin, you need to pull one together here quickly. So we'll go to Brandon first.
well, I just wanted to really go over because it's saddening to me that this happened, and that's the Tiger Woods news from this I think
Oh
this
wow.
earlier this week. So if you guys didn't see, it sounds like you did because you're just as exasperated as I am. He ruptured his left Achilles. So he's going to be done for a while. It sounds like he was just ramping up again to try to get ready probably for the Masters, and he couldn't even get to that point. So for me, it's so sad, and I've probably said this before, maybe the years past, but he's always made a bit of a comeback, but I think it's over. Like I think it's over. I can't see him coming back from something like this at his age and being able to compete at the highest level with some of these guys these days. And so I think for the most part his numbers and his legacy is now pretty much complete in my eyes. So I just wanted to
Just
take a second look at that
Yeah.
and give my condolences to the big guy, Tiger Woods.
just just play TGL and play the Masters once a year. That's all you have
That's
to do.
all he
That
probably
might be
could.
what it looks like soon. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mine's taking a second look. Is actually going to be Brandon Montour. Last night scores the quickest NHL overtime goal. 4 seconds into the game, into overtime. Um, obviously, uh, I honestly do not like Craig Button at all, like what he says. That's my personal opinion. But he was spot on, I think, because I think he was the one who called the game for TSN last night. They noticed the play that like Montreal had was going to run. Caulfield was going to come onto the ice as soon as they won the draw, and they were kind of trying to set that up. Montour kind of jumped the play and just went for it and read it off. Like it was kind of like, a cornerback jumping the play and like reading it correctly. It kind of felt like that. So it was like a really, really good moment for him. Sucks because he's put up like back-to-back 4-point games against the Canadians this year, and absolute sucks. But you know what? Still not bad.
Yeah, didn't he score against -14 Lane Hudson, predictive rookie of the year?
Yeah, actually,
crazy to say.
Well, rookie of the year is not crazy to say, but
That's not. It really isn't.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what the hell you're chirping about.
Well,
so.
he's -14 on a team. He's
-14.
He's
Minus
third
14.
worst on the Canadians.
When did we start caring about plus minus?
I've always cared. I don't know why it's gotten.
I think it's still a valuable stat in some
Yeah, if you're like plus like 50.
I think for a defenseman, it should care more than a forward, in my opinion. But here we are. But no, I'm just chirping you. But yeah, that was an incredible goal. And at the end of the day, like a defenseman scoring like that in overtime, like is pretty impressive. And a good play by Chandler Stevenson to set that up. That actually was one of my 2-second looks, so I'm glad we were able to get it out and you were able to break it down, Justin. The other one's actually a pretty fun one. So Chat GPT was asked to predict the next 75 NBA champions, and they did. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this. I'll send this to you after the fact. Brandon, you did. I don't know if you saw this, Justin. 2025. So this year they predicted the Boston Celtics again. So interesting there. Who do you think is the team that won the most championships predictive for the next 80 years, Justin? It said 75. They actually did 80. You just have to guess.
I'm going to take a wild guess here. I'm going to say the Detroit Pistons.
That is a wild guess. It is the LA Lakers, I think, if I'm adding correctly. I think they had 8 predicted over the next 8 years. So there's the LA Lakers.
80.
They have this Seattle. Yeah, that next 80 years, they have 8. Yeah, I'm counting here. The Seattle Sonics, who aren't even a team in the NBA, have, I think, 6 themselves. So I don't know how this model was put together. The Raptors have 2. Their next one is 2041, then 2066. Yeah. Now, this model also has like the Beijing Dragons. It has like Mexico City. It has the Las Vegas Jackrabbits.
Oh, that's because the NBA is going. Yeah, the NBA is going global, man.
Global.
By the way, that NBA product is absolutely atrocious right now.
It's tough to watch.
Bad. The NHL is so much better. So much better.
Well, this is why looking at this was fun. I was like, oh, I'm interested in the NBA a little bit more now to see if this comes to fruition.
Nice. Yeah, we just watch the next 80 years to see if this plans out the way it's gonna go.
Hey, man, listen.
Kicking.
Exactly. If the sun comes out an hour later as per usual over daylight savings time and I get a little more sun, maybe I will last another 80. We'll see how it goes. Ooh, exciting. Daylight savings.
Yeah, daylight savings. Who thought about that idea? Not a great idea.
I don't
Just
know.
We
love the sun though. All that to say, good up, boys. I know a little all over the place, but exciting times in sports. As we mentioned, the NFL ramps up. The draft is coming up in the next month or two. NHL is coming to fruition here with the last set before the playoffs. Same with the NBA, and we have baseball in a couple weeks, which cannot be more exciting as far as I'm concerned. So thank you all for listening. For Alex, Brandon, and Justin, thank you all for listening to this episode 13, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.